in India, if you're not heterosexual, there is a massive social stigma, and that's what we were talking about right now. It is here that with the family needs to support, they need to, help their children if they get to know about it. I think talking to your children is also very important. So joining in now to talk about how important parental support is, we have Prince Manvendra Singh Gohil. He's the founder, Lakshya Trust, and we have Aruna Desai. She's a founding member, Swikar, the Rainbow Parents of India. Arunaji, let me come to you here and ask you, 13 years ago, your 17-year-old son came out to you and he's told you that, he was gay. What was your reaction at that point? And this is way back, 13 years ago.
Thank you very much, Ambika. Yeah, it was in 2007 when he was only 17-year-old. He came out to me, and along with his friends, they had made a plan of coming out. So my reaction was really very cool. Because he had already checked with me 15 days ago whether I know about being gay and all that. So my reaction was very cool. And then because it was not him, but I asked him that, are you gay? Because he had told me about somebody else is gay, So he just got up when I told him that. I asked him, are you gay? So he just got up and came and hugged me and asked me whether I still love him or not. And I told him that yes, of course, now I love you even more.
चौटाला जी, मैं अमिताभ बच्चन बोल रहा हूँ. देखिए, हरियाणा में किसानों का विरोध, जैसा कि आपने कहा, प्रदर्शन चल रहा है उनका. ऐसे में ग्रामीण इलाकों में प्रदर्शन के दौरान सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग की जो कमी कोविड के मामले को लेकर के हो रही, वो बढ़ेगी, कम होगी, कैसे उसके साथ आप निपटेंगे?
सर, आपने बड़ा अच्छा सवाल किया है. हमारे सामने इसी प्रकार की समस्या अप्रैल के अंदर थी जब वीट की प्रोक्योरमेंट थी, और उसके अंदर हमने वीट की प्रोक्योरमेंट जो पहले 477 सेंटर्स में होती थी उसको बढ़ाकर 1900 सेंटर्स में, सब सेंटर्स में डिवाइड किया, और इकलौता ऐसा प्रदेश था जिसके प्रोक्योरमेंट प्रोसेस में जहां हमने 75 लाख मेट्रिक टन 8.5 लाख किसानों से प्रोक्योर किया, एक भी कोविड पॉजिटिव केस नहीं आया. और अब जहां प्रदर्शन की बात करें, प्रदर्शन एक प्लान्ड स्ट्रेटेजी के तहत पिछले सप्ताह हुआ था. 2 दिनों से पूरे प्रदेश भर के अंदर पैडी की प्रोक्योरमेंट चल रही है, बाजरे की प्रोक्योरमेंट चल रही है, कॉटन की प्रोक्योरमेंट चल रही है और मक्के की प्रोक्योरमेंट चल रही है. और पिछली बार से भी हमने दुगने हर प्रकार की फसल के प्रोक्योरमेंट सेंटर्स बनाए हैं. और खुशी होती है सांझी आपसे करते हुए कि हरियाणा इकलौता ऐसा राज्य है जिसने फार्मर की शेड्यूलिंग भी डिजिटलाइज करी. हमारा एक एक किसान अपनी फसल का, अपनी जमीन का ब्यौरा सरकार को डिजिटलाइजेशन के तहत बताता है. वो सप्ताह चूज करता है कि मैं इस सप्ताह में मेरी फसल बेचना चाहता हूं, और सरकार उसको शेड्यूल कर उस सप्ताह के अंदर बुलाती है और उसका एक एक दाना प्रोक्योर करती है. और इसी कारण अब तक हमारे किसी भी प्रोक्योरमेंट एजेंसी के एम्प्लॉय को, गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉय को या किसी भी फार्मर को अभी कोविड की महामारी झेलनी नहीं पड़ी. और हम उम्मीद करते हैं, ऊपर वाले से भी दुआ करते हैं कि अगला जो 2 महीने का पैडी का प्रोक्योरमेंट सीजन है, इसके अंदर हरियाणा के एक एक नागरिक को हम सुरक्षित रखें.
जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर.
जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद दुष्यंत चौटाला जी इस कार्यक्रम में शामिल होने के लिए.
In 2016-18, where there was another issue of hidden hunger, that is the micronutrients. Zinc deficiency was present in almost 19% of preschoolers and 32% of adolescents, and so also folate deficiency. And there was, vitamin B12, vitamin A, D, they hover around 14 to 31%. So while malnutrition is a predominant risk factor for death under 5 years of age, and also a leading cause for health loss for all ages, we call that the disability adjusted life years. So, which is nearly 17.3% of Delhi's. So, the Government of India launched a very ambitious and a flagship program by Poshan Abhiyan, which was launched in 2018 by the Honorable Prime Minister. And this was designed to provide a continuum of care to address the 1000 days, which is the critical window or the first window of opportunity. And this is a comprehensive package of convergent interventions across multiple government schemes, sectors, and programs. So we actually just celebrated the third Poshan Maah, where the emphasis is on not only survival of the child, but also thriving. The other focus that you said on adolescent health, I think this is the second window of opportunity, because there is a growth spurt. And we can certainly, as we see that the micronutrient deficiency is of course there. And when these girls go into motherhood, they need to have a good body mass index, more than 18.5 kg per meter square. And they need to have a good nutritional, during the pregnancy. So we need to identify the pregnancy which is at high nutritional risk, which means where the body mass index is less than 18.5, or they are anemic, because anemia basically is a proxy indicator for multiple micronutrient deficiencies. So that needs to be corrected. And we need to have targeted interventions for prevention of child marriages, delaying the age of conception, access to adolescent-friendly health services, family planning to do away with the unwanted pregnancy, nutrition education, and that is very important, and menstrual hygiene, and of course a life skills program. As we discussed during the day, that these children at the adolescence, they are also into the phase of developing adult identity, and therefore these life skills play a very important role in terms of critical thinking and social skills, so that they can have a safe negotiating behavior.
Right. Yeah. Indiraji, why are the first 1,000 days considered such a crucial period for mother and child?
The first 1,000 days actually starts from the day of conception, sir, and goes on till the child is 2-year-old. This is a unique period of a life of a child, while inside the mother and after he or she is born, because this is the foundation period of the entire life. The entire growth of all the organs, and especially the brain, happens at this time. Therefore, if coverage is given, proper coverage is given of nutrition, health, and other supportive factors, the entire life of the person becomes protected. And therefore, this 1,000 days is very critical in the life of any human being, right from conception till 2 years of age. So this is the most interesting period. I don't know why this has happened, but that is what's happened, that the first 1,000 days forms the entire life of a person.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bhandari, to talk about, the importance of breastfeeding. While we're talking about the first 1,000 days, breastfeeding is again a very, very critical aspect of this. And we have with us Neha Dhupia, actor and first-time mother, Angad Bedi, actor and first-time father, Parul Ori, chief editor, Momspresso, and Dr. Raghuram Malaya, he's the director, neonatology, as well as the founder of Amara Human Milk Bank, Fortis Lafayette. Neha, you have been working on spreading awareness on breastfeeding. In fact, last year on 2nd October, you were here on this platform, you were joined us and you were telling us about, how you wanted to work on this. And in the last year, I've seen you've done a lot of work on this. You started Freedom to Feed. What was your thought behind it?
Firstly, I'd like to start by saying a very warm good evening to everyone here. Unfortunately, because of technology, I can't tell who all are online, but I did see a glimpse of Bachchan Saab. So, Bachchan Saab, very warm good evening to you as well and to everyone watching.
Thank you.
To answer your question, actually, I have to say that last year on the 2nd of October, when I was sitting on the panel with all of you, all the experts, and of course, Dr. Prannoy Roy and Bachchan Saab, everybody was sitting there. I got a huge amount of encouragement sitting over there that day, and I was like, I need to take this voice forward. It's been a year. We built a very large community of mums and experts where we talk about freedom to feed, and freedom to feed is a place where we come of lack of any sort of judgment. So we're not judging you. There's no stigma attached to breastfeeding. There's no stigma attached even if you want to feed your child, formula milk. The only thing that we advocate as far as mums or new mums is concerned is that every mother in their own right is amazing and is trying to do her version of what she thinks is perfect for her child. and more importantly, what what a mom does is always the best. I mean, for their own children, सबको ऐसे लगता है कि वो सब अच्छा कर रहे हैं. हम यही कहते हैं कि जो हर जगह जो माँ अपने बच्चे के लिए कर रही है वो बहुत ही बेहतरीन तरीके से giving it 100%, and that's exactly what we talk on Freedom to Feed as well. A large part of the conversation revolves around breastfeeding, and therefore a large part of the community of mums that we have are new mums, and we have some great conversations, for them and with them.
So Dr. Raghuram, tell us, just simply in simple words, we do know breastfeeding is very important, but many a times a lot of mothers cannot feed their child for whatever reason. How does a mother actually cope with that? Because it's one thing, a mother feels guilty or the family feels that she can't feed. Tell us, how can a mom cope with that?
Good afternoon to everybody on the panel here and to all the viewers. I always say breastfeeding is the most natural and the easiest method of feeding a mother can do for her own baby. Actually, it's not as difficult as people make it out to be, and it can be simplified quite a bit. But the problem that happens is a lot of mothers, immediately after giving birth, go through a lot of stress. There's a number of factors that affect how the feeding works from there on. There is a lot of people who are giving advice to the mother. I always feel that the mother's instinct is the right instinct, and usually most of the mothers get it right. But there's a lot of people advising the mother what to do. It can be quite challenging, especially after you've delivered a baby. You're going through a lot of emotional ups and downs. There's a lot of pain and discomfort some mothers do have after delivering the baby. They're quite tired by the time they start getting to feed the baby. And especially at this vulnerable period, if there are a lot of people giving you wrong advices or many advices, it's very difficult for the mother to concentrate on the feeding. So I always advocate that the mother should be well prepared even before she delivers the baby. And she should be sensitized about the breastfeeding and the importance of breastfeeding and what to expect when she starts breastfeeding the baby. A lot of times it will not be as easy as people make it out to be. Like I said, the mother's quite tired. She doesn't know that the baby is going to wake up. Mother will not have any independence about when she can sleep and when she can be awake. She cannot determine this. Her cycle has to match with that of the baby. All this, if the mother is sensitized prior to delivery, and if they are aware of it, it makes their life a lot more easier. In our hospital, in fact, we sensitize both the mother and the father. I think the father also plays a very crucial role in getting the mother to successfully breastfeed the baby. If all these things are done correctly, usually breastfeeding is not as big as a problem as people make it out to be. Also, there's a lot of misconceptions. There are a lot of people in the house who say, don't give the initial milk, wait for the milk to come in. You have only once the milk comes in, then you feed the baby. Don't give the baby colostrum. All these things can be addressed in the antenatal period before the mother actually delivers the baby. I think more importance should be paid towards sensitizing the mother even before she delivers the baby. And I think in my own experience, when we have done this, we've seen that a lot of mothers are actually more prepared and they know what to expect rather than be surprised with a lot of, if I can put it this way, a lot of rude surprises. So I think it's very important to concentrate towards this aspect of trying to sensitize the mother, and they need the maximum amount of support in the first 1 to 2 weeks. We as healthcare professionals as well should concentrate not only while the baby is in the hospital, but once they get discharged to try and help them with this. And most importantly, I always tell all the mothers that you should enjoy this period. It should not be like a sword hanging over your head and saying that this is the only way to do things. And most mothers should look back and say that they actually enjoyed the period of breastfeeding. It should be a bonding process and an enjoyable process for both of them.
Angad, hello, how are you?
Amit sir, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. You look good.
So are you. I'm only trying to be 10% of what you are.
Angad, as a recent dad, I just wanted to ask you, from your experience, how do you think dads can contribute to the whole process of feeding, emotionally, physically, mentally? What would you say to new fathers or fathers-to-be?
Sir, I would like to say is that I think the fathers should don the role of being a protector, which is very important. When the baby and the mother are in the hospital and the mother is nursing, it's a very sensitive time for both of them. And I feel the father should understand that. And obviously you get a lot of visitors and they want to see, it's all good. But I think a little bit of privacy should be maintained. Another point I would like is how you burp the newborn. It is extremely important. They teach you, but then you have to practice it on your own, and you have to help your spouse and your missus in extending that helping hand. The third point I would like to make, sir, here is that it's important to sometimes really, I feel the husbands should become the wives, and I think it is extreme to try and think from that perspective is extremely important, because the mother can get exhausted. She will be tired. She will be cranky. She will have a lot of emotional. Her graph will be very up and down emotionally, physically. It's a very demanding job, sir. So I think you have to be there all the time. Sometimes even to be understanding as to, children and babies can have a problem in latching, or mothers can have an issue where they might not produce milk immediately, and that might take time. And for that, I think their confidence also does suffer. And I think that there is no harm in, getting some help so that you can go through that tough time. It is something I and Neha did witness was postpartum. And I think that it's very important that we educate our men in our industry, as not just in our industry, but also in our country, as to what postpartum really actually means.
Yeah, Angad, how many times did you make your baby burp?
I think, sir, as many times as possible, because I think I enjoyed doing that, and I thrived on the fact that due full credit and full marks to Neha, but I think I would burp Meher slightly better than Neha.
Well, come on. We have to give a right to reply to Neha now. Quick right to reply.
Yeah, no, I want to add two things over here. So there was, I just told Angad, an old lady's tale, saying that, apparently if the height is really high, the baby burps very well. So, between 5'7" and 6'1", there's a height difference. So he took that job up very seriously. And the other one, of course, for a lot of fathers, you would know this, that there's the hunger and the thirst after you feed your child is another level. And it always helps when your husband is willing to cook up a meal for you at 3 in the morning. So Angad did contribute like that as well. So yes, it does help. I want to just refer back to Doctor who was talking earlier, if I may take an extra minute, sir, of your time, that he did say that, we have to sensitize the mother, we have to educate the child and the mom, and you don't know what you're in for, and you're in for surprises. One of the big things that we need to mention, and as somebody who runs a community called Freedom to Feed, I would just like to mention that the biggest surprise that we are in for, especially as women, I always say this, that in rural areas, women are far more empowered when it comes to breastfeeding. It's like wherever they want to feed the child, they go ahead and do it. Even for us, we can do it as moms, but I just feel that the facilities are lacking, and we need a lot more facilities over here. So I think the biggest shock that comes to us as far as breastfeeding moms is always an option. Bahar jaएं कि बच्चे को feed करें, कि mall में जाएं कि बच्चे को feed करें, कि office जाएं वहाँ पे बैठ के जगह मिलेगी नहीं मिलेगी या नहीं मिलेगी. So I just feel that there has to be a certain voice or a community that comes forward to make even better facilities for breastfeeding moms, so that it's not an either or in their lives. And and I understand it's an isolated process and you have to be all by yourself, and that's why maybe a little more kind of work towards providing convenient spots would be a step in the right direction.
Okay.
Wonder how we can do that.
Yeah, I think this will be.
I think you'd have to schedule your travel movements, Neha. I don't know how we can. How can someone make that provision? I mean,
no, but then there are some places where you've got breastfeeding pods. I mean, in fact, it's very interesting.
It's just started
Yes.
with a couple, like the malls have taken
It's just starting,
initiatives.
sir, but the thing is that, I know enough and more friends of mine or women or people who reach out to us through our community saying कि हमको corporate job करना है, तो वहाँ पे हमारे पास जगह नहीं है, या फिर हमको, because, new moms want to do different things, or they want to go to a mall and shop, or when they want to go to a mall and shop in 3.5 hours, they'll have to just go to a bathroom and say कि bathroom में जाके हमको बच्चे को feed करना है, which is not the right thing. We need to have a voice in the direction. There are communities, there are pods that are being made, but like even parks, even if they have a small little corner where we can, like our new moms can have this facility, it's a really, really wonderful step for them as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, the point that Neha seems to have mentioned is going to be part of the next discussion that we'll have, because while we were, thank you very much Neha as well as Angad, and Angad, do keep burping the baby. This is great news. I did too, by the way, and struggled, but good to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I learned on the job.
Thank you, Bachchan sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
you, Angad.
Bye-bye.
Thank
See you
you.
at home.
Yeah, sir, I'll message you. Thank you, and you're looking great. And
Thank you,
I
Angad.
love you. I love you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the point that these two were making was very important, that can we make areas in our city, in our country, breastfeeding friendly? And do you remember, Ambika, when we were preparing for this program, we came across the whole RB Nutrition India program in Nandurbar, Amravati, and through the process we also learned how some breastfeeding pods have been built, have been put up, which is a great initiative, and that's exactly what Neha was talking about. You create a facility for women so that they don't have to feel ashamed about a baby requiring to be breastfed.
At least they know there is a place where they can actually go feed their child. They don't have to hide or go into a toilet and feed their child.
इस पर बात करने के लिए हमारे साथ रवि भटनागर, डायरेक्टर एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स एंड पार्टनरशिप्स आरबी, अभी थोड़ी देर में हमारे साथ यहाँ पर जुड़ जाएंगे. डॉक्टर राजन शंकर, डायरेक्टर हैं न्यूट्रिशन टाटा ट्रस्ट के, और मोहम्मद आसिफ, आप भी हमारे साथ जुड़ने वाले हैं, एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर प्लान इंडिया, और बसंता कर, आप रिसिपिएंट हैं ग्लोबल न्यूट्रिशन लीडरशिप एंड ट्रांसफॉर्म न्यूट्रिशन चैंपियन अवार्ड के. तो आप सब लोगों का बहुत बहुत स्वागत है इस चर्चा में. सबसे पहला सवाल राजन जी आपसे, हाउ has COVID-19 affected the nutrition landscape in India? It is likely to compromise the progress that we as a country have made in defeating malnutrition in India, something we've been struggling with.
Thank you. Good evening. And at the outset, my greetings to all in the all viewers. Thank you very much for inviting me to this panel. I think COVID, and more particularly the strategies that we have adopted to contain the spread of the virus, have almost devastated everything. And we're going to see a significant slide back in the progress that we have made in malnutrition elimination, as well as a surge in cases of malnutrition.
The program has yielded the highest return on investment ever. And we have also benchmarked it, Sanket, like, is it just, to be happy looking into our own numbers, or how market is behaving, or what our competitors are doing, not just in India, but across the globe. And we are very proud to say, like, our return on investment is one of the highest. And Amitabh sir, it's a great thing to tell you, like, the intervention sites where we have worked, in last 1 year, there are 0 deaths, sir, of the kids. So the 1,000 villages which we have chosen, and it's not our data, it's the government data as well as the third-party audits. They have done the audits on that. So otherwise, there were a lot of severely malnourished kids, a lot of moderately malnourished kids, and there is a progress tracking which is happening on the month-to-month basis, and the same model we are going to replicate. And the regions where we have tested it is Melghat, which is all tribal region, and a lot of forestation is there. So there are a lot of acceptance which has come from the other state governments, like in Orissa, like in Koraput, Kalahandi, Bolangir, and many other places. They also want the similar kind of modeling to be done. So we are very much on that, sir, and that will be a newer bond which we'll be bringing to India in year 2021.
Okay, wonderful. I just want to ask Mr. Mohammad Asif. So, Plan India is the on-ground partner for RB's nutrition program in Maharashtra. What impact have you seen on the ground in year 1?
Yeah, first of all, good evening, Bachchan Sahab. It's an honor and privilege to be part of this conversation with you, sir.
Thank you so much.
This Nutrition India program, like it's probably one of the only program which has looked at, taken a public health approach to nutrition. So which basically means that we are working at all the 4 pillars of programming, which is around promoting health, prevention of disease, diagnosis and treatment, and rehabilitation. So and also the approach that we took was to work at the knowledge, attitudes and behavior and practice front. So, taking a holistic approach to this initiative, we have been successful in supporting over the last 12-15 months that the program has been on the ground, ensuring that 32,000 children, under 5 children, they and their parents and caregivers, they have received the support and information and protection that they need to ramp up nutrition and be healthy. At another level, we have also been able to do intensive tracking in the communities to identify children who need direct support. So more than 6,000 such children were identified who had were malnourished or undernourished from the standards point of view, and those children have been supported by the initiative to improve their health and reach normalcy. And the most critical piece is that once the child reaches normalcy, the project ensures that that levels are maintained. At another level, the whole project has been conceived on a human-centric design kind of a platform, but also looking at the system strengthening. So working very closely with the district administration, with the key duty bearers on the ground who are supposed to provide this support, and how we can bolster those initiatives that are there working, so that children reach that optimal level, and we are able to continue to work towards achieving the objectives.
Okay. Right, Asif Saab, Dr. Shankar, Ravi, as well as Basanta Kar, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience. We'll have to stop for a short break at this moment, but we'll continue our telethon just after these messages. Stay with us. तो कार्यक्रम आगे बढ़ाते हैं. हमारे साथ अब जुड़ गए हैं नीरज जैन, इंडिया कंट्री डायरेक्टर हैं पाथ के. Mr. Jain, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV on this program. Now, despite the government spending a good amount in programs like Mission Indra, Indradhanush, the country's immunization remains one of the lowest in the world. I want to ask you why.
So, firstly, we must accept we're a large country. Also, the baseline that we're coming from has been quite low. It's definitely, if you look at what we've achieved over the last years, and especially after the launch of Mission Indradhanush, it's actually fantastic. I mean, we have 2.7 crore children as a birth cohort every year. Reaching them, it's a large country, the population is huge, so reaching them is already a challenge. And within that reach, there are also challenges of, cultural type. There are issues about vaccine hesitancy. There are issues about gender, where we see discrimination between vaccination for boys versus girls. We see issues of discrimination by firstborn versus second, third, etc. So multiple such reasons kind of make it difficult for us to be able to get to 100%. But we are at 65%, and we're moving very quickly, and we're seeing also, to some extent, we believe that this whole conversation around COVID and how a vaccine could possibly help is also going to help us with the larger vaccination program. So we're very hopeful that we will reach hopefully close to 100% in the next years ahead. That's where we're heading.
Mr. Neeraj, PATH has supported development of many vaccines. What is PATH doing in the development of COVID vaccines, and what are the other important aspects to make sure that the vaccine reaches the last mile? After you answer this, I just want to add another portion to it, which was brought up by Sanket regarding the Indradhanush facility that the government of India does.
Sure. Thanks for that, Mr. Bachchan. Great to see you. I wish it was in person, but we'll do with this for now, and hopefully next year we'll see you in person. So PATH has been involved with the development of multiple vaccines. In fact, there are 2 rotavirus vaccines from India, which are 2 out of the 4 globally. PATH has been part of development of those. We have also been part of that's for diarrhea. We've also been part of development of the pneumococcal vaccine in the past, which is now being rolled out in India, so against pneumonia. In terms of COVID, there's a lot to be done. Firstly, there are multiple COVID vaccines, as you might have already seen, and they're coming from all over the world. There's a need for to figure out how these are going to be rolled out in terms of phase 3 trials. And I'm sure now, there used to be a time when I used to say phase 3 trials and people would ask me what that meant. But now it's all front page. So I'm presuming that the audience already knows what that is. So there are many already in development. There are going to be multiple manufacturers. There are platforms which have developed. There's a platform called COVAX, which we've also been working with, which actually has 168 countries from around the world has signed up to that to try and provide equitable access of vaccines to the whole world. So we are part of that process. There's also this whole thing of how many vaccines when. So, a lot of people ask me, when will I get the vaccine? And I think, we did a research along with CEPI and WHO. And what we found was that by the end of 2021, we'd probably get 2 to 4 billion vaccines at a max. That's the kind of production facility. We went to 130 factories around the world, did an analysis of that. And that's what we realized. So this is going to take some time. And if you have to take 2 doses, and I know Adar Poonawalla has talked about this also, if you're going to take 2 doses and if it's going to be across the world, everybody, you're probably looking at 2024. So PATH has been involved with that, but really our focus is on equitable access. How do we make sure that those who need the vaccine gets it first? And probably people like me would be sort of standing far behind on the list. In terms of getting the vaccine access.
So in addition, I just wanted to reflect on what Sanket brought up in the Indradhanush package. It's a package that contains vaccination from the part of the government on many diseases. We've been trying to push a particular disease and ask the government to pay particular attention to it, particularly hepatitis B. And it comes under the general package. Hepatitis B is something that actually needs a lot of attention because we've discovered, and I work for it, that many a times there's a lot of discrimination that takes place, particularly amongst women. And many women who are detected with hepatitis B are actually, sorry to say, but after marriage get thrown out of the home. In the villages, we've seen that. Women that get infected with hepatitis B are not allowed entry into certain countries. And because they fear that, the children that are born will be infected and that will spread. Is there some way that some particular attention, concentrated attention, can be given to either hepatitis B as an isolated incident or some of the other more major diseases? Because unless special attention is given to them, somehow they get lost in that general package of Indradhanush.
Unfortunately, that is the case for many of the diseases in our country. And that's also because we have so many diseases which are still life-threatening. We're losing our under 5 children, etc. So that's, rightly so, there's a prioritization that happens. But talking specifically about hepatitis, I think the larger challenge there is on diagnosis. I think a lot of people are still falling off the map in diagnosis. So as our primary healthcare is getting strengthened through Ayushman Bharat, the government is working on that. As the primary healthcare gets strengthened, I think one of the most important things will be to be able to screen and test and diagnose early to be able to do an intervention. Still a long way to go, still lots to do there. But my sense is that once we're able to diagnose and once we have a list, and I must say, we've done that in the TB program, and I know you've really been supporting us as public health people in the TB program, where every TB patient is now on a database. The diagnosis is actually happening even in the private sector. So if a TB patient is going to a private doctor or to a pharmacy, anywhere that they might be going, they are getting proper diagnosis and they're going into that register. So that's where we need to go with hepatitis. And I think we're on our way, but yes, your voice will definitely help. So I would sort of continue to request you to keep talking about it at these kind of places. And we'll keep working on the ground on that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Mr. Neeraj Jain, India Country Director of PATH.